And there is a key difference between cash spending and spending from a bank account, like using a checking account or a credit card, right? And that is who is able to keep track of the spending, right? With cash, you are the only one that even has a chance to keep track of that, right? There's no bank that's also recording that as it happens, unlike spending from your checking account or with a credit card, right? For those, even if you don't keep track, the bank does. Right? They're always monitoring, keeping track of all those transactions, updating your balance, all that good stuff. So cash can seem a little more challenging because you don't have any backup. Right? There's nobody else you can go to double check that you got everything right. Right? But I do want you to know you do not have to track every single penny in cash spending. Although you can if you want to, right? You get the choice. And in YNAB, there are two options for handling cash. The first one is to have a category for your cash. And this is the simpler of the two approaches, and in fact, the one I use in my own budget. Right? And it's going to be great for those of you that don't want or need to track every single penny in cash. Right? And typically, that's people that don't get paid in cash, and cash is a relatively small part of their budget. And with this approach, you track those cash withdrawals in your budget at the moment you take the money out of the bank. And then later, when you actually spend that cash, well, there's no need to record anything else in your budget. And so let's jump into a demonstration and show you how this particular approach works. In fact, we'll start ourselves off on the mobile app. So I guess obviously if I'm going to use a cash category approach, I'm going to need a category for that. I've got one down here at the bottom called My Spending Cash. There's $50 available there for me. And it's another category that I'm allocating some of my money to when I give every dollar a job. And as I mentioned, with this approach, when I take the money out of the bank, I treat it in my budget as spending. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say I took $40 in cash at the ATM. So let's go ahead and add in that transaction. It was $40. Pay for that. I'll use ATM withdrawal, same one I use in my own budget. The category for that is, of course, going to be that My Spending Cash. Looks good. Let's save that transaction. And now I can see that I have $10 left in that cash category, and I also have $40 in my pocket. Right? And now I can spend that $40 whenever I want on anything I want, and there's nothing left that I need to record in my budget. Right, so let's talk about the second approach, and that's to have an account for your cash. Right? And this approach is going to be great for those of you that do want or need to track every single penny in cash. Right? And usually that's somebody where that cash is a relatively large part of their budget, or they get paid in cash and they're going to spend that money without ever putting it into the bank. And with this approach, you track the cash spending in your budget when you purchase items in cash. So let's jump on over into a demonstration. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and create my cash account. I don't have one yet. So we'll go ahead and do that. Cash type. I'll name it My Cash. And I have 0 cash at the moment. Absolutely none. So there we go. I now have my cash account where I can record that cash spending. And now before I spend money, I'm going to first check the appropriate category to make sure there's enough there to cover the purchase. And then second, I'm going to check the account that I'm about to spend from. I need to make sure the account also has enough money. For example, if I'm going to go buy some groceries, I start by checking the groceries category. And I have $250. Now, if I want to buy those groceries with cash, I take a look at my cash account and realize, oh, there's nothing there. And so that means I need to go get some cash out of the bank if I'm going to buy those groceries in cash. And so this approach, the time when I take the cash out of the checking account, in YNAB, it is a transfer from one account to the other. So let's go and do that. I took $100 out at the ATM. That's going to be a transfer to my cash account of $100. And so $100 less in the checking account. That money is now in my cash account. And over on the budget, nothing changed and nothing needs to. I simply moved some of my money physically from one location to another. And now, of course, as I spend that cash, I record that spending in that cash account. So let's jump back over to the mobile app, because now I'm out at the farmer's market where they do only take cash. Right? I just bought some food, so I'm going to go ahead and use the mobile app, record that spending right now before I walk away. So let's add that transaction. I spent $75.37. It's not an ATM withdrawal. This is the farmer's market. Category for that is going to be groceries. And it's not coming from the checking account. This is coming out of my cash. So let's save the transaction. So I now have the details on what that cash did. I know it was used for groceries. I can see my updated category balance for groceries. And if I look at the accounts, there's my updated cash account balance. And that should match the money that I have in my pocket right now. And for those of you that are going to use the account approach, I definitely recommend use the mobile app as you spend that cash. No need to worry about losing the receipt along the way or forgetting to enter it. Just do it as soon as you get that spending completed. Right? You paid, you get your receipt back, enter it in, walk away. Right? Even though I don't use this approach for my cash, I still record my spending as soon as it happens with the mobile app. All right, so let's talk about getting paid in cash. All right, so if you get paid in cash and you don't put that money into the bank, it's an inflow in the cash account with the category to be budgeted. So let's add one in here. So let's add a transaction. Let's say I got paid $240 today. Well, not an expense, but income. This button top left, I can switch. Perfect, that's now income. Pay is going to be my employer. It's actually the first time I've been paid, so I'll type it out. Right, I'll create my new payee. Category for that is going to be budgeted. And in fact, is in my cash account. Perfect, save the transaction. So there's my updated amount in my cash account. And if I go take a look over at the budget, that money is up there at the top waiting for me to give it jobs to do. And the best option for you might come down to one of two things, right? It might depend on your situation. Those of you that use a lot of cash or get paid in cash, the account approach is probably going to be the best one for you. Otherwise, it might come down to your personality type. Right? Cash is a small part, but some people still just like to see the details. Right? If you want to see those details, use the account approach. If you would rather keep it simple, use the category approach. All right, so any questions on handling cash? Right, feel free to go ahead and type those questions over. I'll grab those. I do want to get you some links for the next workshops coming up, though, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the next workshop coming up is going to be great for those of you that, maybe you get paid every 2 weeks and you're not sure how to budget with that. Or maybe you have variable income and you're, how on earth can I budget when I don't even know what my income is going to be? Well, the next workshop called You Can Budget with Any Pay Cycle, we'll talk about that. And I will follow that with a workshop that is called Cutting Spending. Now, I will tell you, it's not about cutting spending just to be a cheapskate. Right? It's really an exercise in reprioritization. Right? Where are those things that are less important that I can trim some of my spending and maybe not even notice in order to be able to add more money to those things that are of a higher priority to me? I'll show you how to use the budget to kind of walk through a little exercise where you can maybe figure out some areas you can cut. And Josh says, super sweet, straightforward, excellent. In fact, Josh says, hey, I rarely use cash nowadays with contactless payments everywhere, so the category works well for me. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, the category approach is the best. Because a lot of people don't use a whole lot of cash. It tends to be concentrated, I would say, probably in certain industries where some of the income is often in cash. Right? Servers at restaurants, bartenders, for example, they might get cash tips. And so the account approach might be useful for them. But outside of areas like that, where you typically get a lot of cash in your hand, the category approach is a lot easier to use. But again, it's nice because everybody can choose the approach that's going to give them what they need. And there are going to be some people that are just like Josh, right? They're like, You know, I use contactless payment almost all the time. I hardly ever use cash, but I still want to know what the cash did. That's completely okay, right? Use the account approach and you can see what the cash does. So how about this? Anybody wondering how to handle a situation where you get cash back as part of a transaction? So maybe you go to a big box store, you go to a grocery store, you buy something, and as part of that, you take some cash back. Yeah, so I hand go up. Kendra's wondering about that one. Excellent. Be more than happy to do that. So I'll walk through it first here in the web browser, and I'll also show you how you can do it on the mobile app, because you can do it both places. So let's say I'm going to go to the grocery store. Right? I'm going to buy some food. And as part of the transaction, I'm also going to get $40 in cash back. So I'm going to start in the checking account. This is where the money comes from. So let's add in that transaction at the grocery store. For the category, I don't pick a single category here. I use this button for split multiple categories. So the total transaction is going to be $140. Right? I bought $100 worth of groceries, as it turned out, and the other $40, that was my cash back. So this second line, pretty easy, right? That's my groceries, always the same. The second line of the split depends on which approach you use. For those using the category approach, you simply choose your cash category. If you're using the account approach, instead of picking a category, go to the payee and make that a transfer to the cash account. Pretty straightforward. So before I hit this, I just want to have you take a look. Watch those account balances change as I save this transaction. So $140 just left the checking account, 40 of that went into the cash account. Pretty simple. All right, so I'm going to undo that one, put everything back the way it was, and I'll show you how you can do this on the mobile app. And to do that, I'll have to put my phone up on the screen. There we go. So let's add in that transaction, not income, $140 total transaction. This is going to be the grocery store. Grocery store. I'll create our new payee. So for the category, once again, let me double check this actually. So account, I'm going to change to checking account right now. That's one of those things I sometimes forget to do and it comes back and looks weird later. So now for the category, up in the top right, it says split, right? Just tap that button and you select the categories that you want. Well, I don't want that one. I do want groceries. And if I was doing the category approach, I would also go down and add in my spending cash as a category. And so if I do that and then I tap next, there's where I enter the amounts for each of those two categories. All right, so let's go back. Let's go back. I want to get rid of the, so I want to get rid of the my spending cash one, because if I was doing this with the account approach, I get to this point and now I add a transfer. All right, so let me transfer to my cash. So the transfer to cash was $40. At the other part, the groceries, that was $100. Everything looks good, done. And I now save the transaction. So yeah, whether you use it in the mobile app or from the web browser, you can still do the split transaction. So any other questions about cash? I usually don't get a whole lot because it really is relatively straightforward. But we do have a few minutes left, so if you do have questions, it'd be a perfect opportunity. In fact, I have enough time if you have a question about something that's not related to cash. As long as it doesn't take away from the questions about cash, which I don't see any, I don't mind answering unrelated questions. All right, well, so I'm not seeing any questions. I'll just go ahead and wrap this up just a couple minutes early. I'll send you good folks off on your way. Maybe it's the fact that for most of you, it's still, relatively early on a Saturday morning. I mean, Josh, I know it's probably mid to late afternoon, but I want to thank everybody for joining me here for this workshop, or you spent a part of your Saturday here with me. I do appreciate that. I hope that I will get to see you in some of my workshops in the future, and I hope you've all gotten off to a great start on your weekend. Thanks, everybody.